Hello, and welcome to Sober Without God. I'm here if you have trouble sleeping, or if you're like me, and when you sleep, you like to listen to things that grow your mind into endless possibilities. I would encourage you to please like and subscribe, and maybe leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from, if you're dealing with sleep issues, or if this channel is helping you in any way. As you settle in tonight, make yourself comfortable. Allow your body to sink gently into the bed. Feel the weight of your day melting away. And if you'd like, take a slow, deep breath in and let it out slowly. We're about to take a gentle journey through the life of a man who helped us see the universe in a whole new way. This is the story of Carl Sagan, scientist, poet of the cosmos, and guide to the stars. Let the words wash over you like a sweet song. You don't need to remember every detail. You can simply listen and drift. A boy who dreamed of the stars. Carl Edward Sagan was born on November 9th, 1934, in Brooklyn, New York. His father, Samuel Sagan, was a garment worker, a quiet, hardworking man who had crossed an ocean for a better life. His mother, Rachel Molly Gruber, was a homemaker, gentle and curious, who nurtured her son's questions about the world. Their apartment was small. Life was modest. But within those walls lived a boy with a mind that reached far beyond them. Carl later remembered one of his earliest great moments: visit to the 1939 New York World's Fair. He was just 5 years old. The fair was filled with shimmering visions of the future: glowing highways, talking robots, the promise of space travel. To Carl, it was like walking into a dream. Years later, he said, "The World's Fair was a kind of awakening for me, a world of the future, of possibilities that sparked my imagination." As you picture that little boy, wide-eyed and curious, imagine yourself there with him. Bright lights, towering displays, the smell of popcorn, the soft hum of excited voices, a child's first glimpse of what humanity could become. A library card, and a life changed. Soon after, Carl asked his mother if he could have a book about the stars. She took him to a library. Imagine it now, the smell of old paper, the quiet creak of wooden shelves, a librarian handing a small boy a book filled with answers. Carl opened that book and learned something that would change his life forever. The sun is a star. This single fact shifted his entire world. If the sun was a star, then perhaps every twinkling light in the night sky was also a sun. And if they were suns, could they have planets like ours? Could there be life out there? Carl later said, "It was a revelation. The scales dropped from my eyes. Imagined, and I wanted to know everything about it." Pause for a moment and picture that. The moment a child realizes the universe is vast beyond measure. Take a breath. Let yourself feel the wonder of that moment. Growing up with curiosity, Carl devoured books. He loved science fiction, the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs and H.G. Wells, but also pored over real science. On warm summer nights, he would climb to the roof of his building in Brooklyn and gaze at the stars, the hum of the city below, the endless sky above. And perhaps, like him, you too have looked up at the night sky and felt small, yet somehow connected to something infinitely bigger. Carl once said, "Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known." The University of Chicago. A mind expands. In 1951, at just 16 years old, Carl enrolled at the University of Chicago. It would become his intellectual home for nearly a decade. He earned his bachelor's and master's degrees in physics and then pursued a PhD in astronomy and astrophysics. At Chicago, he studied under Gerard Kuiper, a visionary scientist. Kuiper saw something special in Carl, a rare combination of rigorous science and a deep poetic sense of wonder. Carl's questions grew bolder. What are planets truly made of? Could there be life beyond Earth? And if so, what would it look like? The first big discoveries By the late 1950s, Carl was already making waves in planetary science. He studied the atmospheres of Venus and Mars. Many scientists of the time imagined Venus as a lush tropical paradise, a sister planet to Earth. But Carl thought differently. He proposed that Venus was scorching hot, trapped in the grip of a runaway greenhouse effect. He predicted temperatures hotter than an oven. In 1962, when NASA's Mariner 2 spacecraft flew by Venus, it confirmed what Carl had predicted. He also studied Mars, suggesting that its polar caps contained not just frozen carbon dioxide, but water, ice, and that the planet's seasonal color changes weren't vegetation, but massive dust storms sweeping across the surface. Like any good scientist, Carl wasn't afraid to challenge old ideas. He believed that the cosmos was there to be questioned, explored, and understood. Once he said, the universe is a pretty big place. If it's just us, seems like an awful waste of space. As you lie here listening, think about that for a moment. The universe, vast, silent, brimming with possibility. And a young scientist standing at the edge of the known, daring to ask, who else might be out there? For now, let your mind drift. You are small, like the earth itself, yet connected to a grand universe. Take a deep breath in and slowly let it out. The stars will wait for you. Allow yourself to be comfortable. Feel your body resting deeper into the mattress. Next, we'll talk about Carl Sagan at NASA. By the early 1960s, Carl Sagan's brilliance had begun to shine far beyond the walls of universities. He was invited to work with NASA at the very dawn of the space age. Imagine this: rockets lifting off, satellites circling Earth, humans preparing to set foot on the moon. A new era of exploration had begun. Carl advised on missions like Mariner, Viking, Pioneer, Voyager, and later Galileo. He helped design experiments to search for life on Mars with the Viking landers. He imagined what alien atmospheres might look like, what strange chemistry might exist on worlds far different from ours. Carl had a gift. He could balance rigorous science with unbounded imagination. He often said, somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. To him, every mission, every spacecraft was more than just metal and circuitry. It was a question flung into the void, waiting for an answer. The Voyager Golden Record. In 1977, two spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, were launched to explore the outer planets. On board, they carried something extraordinary, a golden phonograph record. It was a message in a bottle cast into the cosmic sea. Carl led the team that created it. Pause for a moment and close your eyes. Imagine a spacecraft no larger than a small car, sailing silently through the darkness, past Jupiter, past Saturn, beyond the edges of our solar system. And on it, a record, a golden disc containing the sounds and images of Earth. Greetings in 55 languages. The sound of a mother's kiss, a baby crying, a heartbeat, music from Bach to Chuck Berry to traditional songs from across the globe. It carried photographs of our planet, of humans, of animals, of forests and rivers and oceans. If someone, somewhere, someday found it, they would know that we had lived. Carl said, the launching of this bottle into the cosmic ocean says something very hopeful about life on this planet. It says that we were here and we wanted to share our story. The Voyager Golden Record wasn't just data. It was a love letter to the universe. The pale blue dot. In 1990, Voyager 1, now far from home, had finished its mission. Carl had an idea, one that some at NASA thought was unnecessary. Turn the camera around, he said. Take one last picture of Earth. And so they did. From 3.7 billion miles away, Voyager captured an image of our world. A faint dot, smaller than a pixel, suspended in a beam of sunlight. Carl called it the pale blue dot. He reflected on it in words that still echo through time. Here is what he said. We succeeded in taking that picture, and if you look at it, you see a dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever lived out their lives. The aggregate of all our joys and sufferings, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilizations, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every hopeful child, every mother and father, every inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species live there on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and in triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of the dot on scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner of the dot. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It is up to us. It's been said that astronomy is a humbling, and I might add, a character building experience. To my mind, there is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly and compassionately with one another, and to preserve and cherish that pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. End quote. As you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine that little dot suspended in the darkness of space. Think of how small it is, and yet how full it is of life, stories, and dreams. Carl's work was never just about planets or stars. It was about reminding us who we are and how extraordinary it is that we exist at all. Let your thoughts settle, your breathing ease. You are part of that story too, a living being on a tiny world spinning silently in the immensity of the universe. And so the Voyager spacecraft carried its golden record into the deep unknown. And Earth became, in Carl's words, a pale dot of light, adrift in a vast and quiet sea. But for Carl, the work of exploration wasn't only about spacecraft or photographs. It was about connection, helping everyone, not just scientists, feel that same sense of wonder when they look up at the night sky. Take a slow breath in and gently let it out as we follow his mission as it turns into discovery. By the late 1970s, Carl Sagan had already made a name for himself in scientific circles, but he wanted to reach further than lecture halls and research papers. He believed that science, at its heart, belongs to everyone, that the mysteries of the universe should not be kept behind the doors of universities, but should be told as a story of us. Carl began writing for the public. His books explain complex ideas in simple, beautiful language. He spoke about planets and black holes and the search for life as if they were chapters in a grand human adventure. And people listened. Then in 1980, Carl embarked on what would become his most famous project, Cosmos, a personal voyage. Imagine this, a quiet, reflective soundtrack, sweeping views of galaxies and starfields, a gentle voice guiding millions through the story of the universe. Cosmos wasn't just a science show, it was a journey through time, across planets, and deep into the heart of what it means to be human. Carl took viewers from the surface of Earth to the farthest reaches of space, explaining the forces that shape the cosmos and exploring how those same forces shaped us. The series reached hundreds of millions of people in dozens of countries. For many, it was the first time they had felt the scale and beauty of the universe laid out before them in such a moving way. Pause for a moment. Imagine yourself in 1980, television flickering softly in a darkened room. You were watching images of distant galaxies while Carl gently speaks about our shared cosmic origins. You feel small, but also deeply connected to everything. Take a breath. Let that feeling linger. Carl's philosophy of wonder. Through his books, his lectures, and cosmos, Carl carried a message that science isn't cold or distance. It is a candle in the dark. He reminded us that as small as we are part of something immense and ancient. And though he spoke often of the vastness of space, he also spoke of the fragility of Earth. He saw our planet as rare and delicate, a place we must cherish and protect because it's the only home we've ever known. To Carl, understanding the universe imagine yourself floating in the vastness of space. Below you is the earth, quiet, glowing, and possibly beautiful. This is home. This is us. As Carl Sagan's voice reached living rooms across the world through Cosmos, his mission deepened. It wasn't enough to simply marvel at the stars. He wanted to help us see our place within them and to understand what that means for how we live on Earth. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. As we continue, imagine yourself drifting like the Voyager spacecraft, far from home, carrying the story of Earth with you. In the years following Cosmos, Carl wrote some of his most influential books. They weren't just about science, they were about humanity. Books like Contact, a story imagining our first communication with extraterrestrial life, explored how such a moment might transform us. It wasn't only about what we might find out there, but what we might discover about ourselves. He wrote about our need for critical thinking and the importance of questioning, of keeping our minds open but grounded in evidence when he wrote Demon Haunted World. He argued that science was not a collection of dry facts, but a tool for survival, a way to light the darkness of ignorance. His writing combined careful reasoning with a deep sense of wonder, making even the most complex ideas feel like poetry. Carl's growing fame gave him a platform, and he used it to advocate for Earth. He warned about the dangers of nuclear war, speaking often about how fragile life is on this planet. He worked with scientists and policymakers, emphasizing that the survival of humanity depended on cooperation, not conflict. He also raised his voice about climate change long before it became a mainstream conversation. Drawing on his studies of Venus's runaway greenhouse effect, he cautioned that unchecked changes to Earth's atmosphere could bring dire consequences. For Carl, the lesson of the cosmos was clear. Our planet is rare. Our world is small. Picture the Earth as Carl did, bright, delicate sphere suspended in endless darkness. No borders visible from space, no divisions, just one world shared by all who have ever lived. Let that image rest in your mind, championing science and reason. Carl also became one of the strongest voices for defending science in public life. He believed that skepticism, questioning claims, demanding evidence, was essential for a healthy society. But he balanced this with curiosity, the willingness to explore new ideas with open eyes. To Carl, science wasn't cold or uncaring. It was a way to protect ourselves from being misled and a way to deepen our appreciation for the universe. He encouraged everyone, not just scientists, to think critically, to question, to seek truth, and to embrace the beauty of reality, even when it challenged our assumptions. A philosophy of hope. Through it all, Carl carried a message of hope. He saw humanity not as insignificant, but as a species still in its early stages, with the potential to grow wiser. Even in his most sobering mornings, there was always a thread of optimism, a belief that if we work together, we could build a future worthy of the cosmos we inhabit. As you listen, take a deep breath in and out. Think of Earth again, this fragile home, adrift in a sea of stars. Carl's voice reminds us that caring for this planet and each other may be the most important journey we ever take. For now, let your thoughts settle. Let your breathing slow. You are safe. You are small. You are part of something vast and beautiful. We've traveled with Carl Sagan through the stars, through NASA's great missions, and through his tireless work to share the cosmos with us all. But who was Carl when the cameras were off? Take a breath. Let your body grow a little heavier. Imagine we're walking together through the quiet halls of memory, seeing not just the scientist, but the man himself. Carl's public image, the warm voice, the gentle teacher, the dreamer of worlds, reflected much of who he was in private life. He was curious in everything. He loved conversation, art, music, and long discussions that stretched into the night. Friends and colleagues often spoke of his kindness, how he treated people, from fellow scientists to students to strangers, with respect and a genuine interest in their thoughts. He married 3 times and had 5 children. His last marriage became one of the great creative partnerships of his life. His wife, Anne, worked alongside Carl on the projects like the Voyager Golden Record and the Cosmos series. She later described their collaboration not just as professional, but as deeply personal, a meeting of 2 minds who saw the universe as something to be shared, celebrated, and understood together. Imagine them at a table late at night, a stack of books and notes between them, talking about what humanity might say or hear from the stars. 2 voices dreaming big dreams for a small world. In the early 1990s, Carl was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. For 2 years, he underwent treatment, including multiple bone marrow transplants. Through it all, he continued to work, to write, and to speak publicly about science and humanity's place in the cosmos. He saw life not as a guarantee, but as a precious, fleeting gift. Even in his final years, his words carried a deep sense of gratitude for existence, for the opportunity to look up at the stars, to learn, to share, and to love. In 1996, Carl Sagan passed away at the age of 62. It was a loss felt by millions, by scientists, students, and dreamers who have been touched by a vision of a universe filled with both mystery and meaning. But Carl's story didn't end there. His books continue to be read by new generations. His television series, Cosmos, has been revived and reimagined, carrying his message of curiosity and humility forward. Every time someone looks up at the night sky and wonders what might be out there, they walk a little in his footsteps. His legacy is not only in the missions he worked on or on the discoveries he helped shape, it's in the way he taught us to see ourselves. He reminded us that our planet, small and fragile, is worth protecting, that science can be a tool for hope, not fear, and that even in a universe so vast, it can make us feel insignificant. Our lives, brief and delicate as they are, hold meaning. Let's listen to some of the famous quotes Carl Sagan gave us and left us with. Every one of us is, in the cosmic perspective, precious. If a human disagrees with you, let him live. In 100 billion galaxies, you will not find another. The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff. One glance at a book and you hear the voice of another person, someone dead for 1,000 years. To read is to voyage through time. What an astonishing thing a book is. It's a flat object made from a tree with flexible parts on which are imprinted lots of funny dark squiggles. But one glance at it and you're inside the mind of another person, maybe someone dead for thousands of years. Across the millennia, an author is speaking clearly and silently inside your head, directly to you. Writing is perhaps the greatest of human inventions, binding together people who never knew each other, citizens of distant epochs. Books break the shackles of time. A book is proof that humans are capable of working magic. For me, it is far better to grasp the universe as it really is than to persist in delusion, however satisfying and reassuring. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Who is more humble? The scientist who looks at the universe with an open mind and accepts whatever the universe has to teach us? Or somebody who says everything in this book must be considered the literal truth and never mind the fallibility of all the human beings involved? For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. In science, it often happens that scientists say, you know, that's a really good argument. My position is mistaken. And then they would actually change their minds, and you never hear that old view from them again. They really do it. It doesn't happen as often as it should because scientists are human and change is sometimes painful, but it happens every day. I cannot recall the last time something like that happened in politics or religion. We are like butterflies who flutter for a day and think it is forever. Imagination will often carry us to worlds that never were, but without it, we go nowhere. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues. When the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media, the 30-second sound bites, now down to 10 seconds or less, lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual. So are our emotions in the presence of great art or music or literature or acts of exemplary selfless courage, such as those of Mohandas Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both. We can judge our progress by the courage of our questions and the depths of our answers, our willingness to embrace what is true rather than what feels good. You're an interesting species, an interesting mix. You're capable of such beautiful dreams and such horrible nightmares. You feel so lost, so cut off, so alone, only you're not. See, in all our searching, the only thing we found that makes emptiness bearable is each other. I don't want to believe. I want to know. I would love to believe that when I die, I will live again, that some thinking, feeling, remembering part of me will continue. But as much as I want to believe that, and despite the ancient and worldwide cultural traditions that assert an afterlife, I know of nothing to suggest that it is more than wishful thinking. But the fact that some geniuses were laughed at does not imply that all who are laughed at are geniuses. They laughed at Columbus. They laughed at Fulton. They laughed at the Wright brothers. But they also laughed at Bozo the Clown. Frederick Douglass taught that literacy is the path from slavery to freedom. There are many kinds of slavery and many kinds of freedom, but reading is still the path. How is it that hardly any major religion has looked at science and concluded this is better than we thought? The universe is much bigger than our prophet said, grander, more subtle, more elegant. Instead, they say, no, 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 my God is a little God, and I want him to stay that way. A religion, old or new, that stressed the magnificence of the universe as revealed by modern science might be able to draw forth reserves of reverence and awe hardly tapped by the conventional faiths. The nuclear arms race is like two sworn enemies standing waist deep in gasoline, one with 3 matches, the other with 5. The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The truth may be puzzling. It may take some work to grapple with it. It may be counterintuitive. It may contradict deeply held prejudices. It may not be consonant with what we desperately want to be true, but our preferences do not determine what is true. Exploration is in our nature. We began as wanderers, and we are wanderers still. We have lingered long enough on the shores of the cosmic ocean. We are ready at last to set sail for the stars. I consider it an extremely dangerous doctrine because the more likely we are to assume that the solution comes from the outside, the less likely we are to solve the problems ourselves. She had studied the universe all her life, but had overlooked its clearest message. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. The universe seems neither benign nor hostile, merely indifferent. If it can be destroyed by the truth, it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. The cosmos is all that is, or was, or ever will be. Our feeblest contemplations of the cosmos stir us. There is a tingling in the spine, a catch in the voice, a faint sensation as if a distant memory or falling from a height. We know we are approaching the greatest of mysteries. Carl Sagan's voice may be gone, but his message remains to keep exploring, to keep questioning, to keep caring for each other and for this beautiful, fragile home that we share. And so our journey with Carl Sagan nears its end. We have walked with him from the streets of Brooklyn to the lecture halls of Chicago to the farthest reaches of the solar system aboard the Voyager spacecraft. We've seen how he shared the universe, not just with scientists, but with anyone willing to look up at the stars and wonder. Now let us pause and reflect. Take a deep, easy breath in. Hold for a moment and slowly let it out. Carl Sagan left us with lessons that stretch far beyond astronomy. He showed us that science is not only a tool for understanding the world, it's a way of living with humility and awe. And it's okay to feel small in the vastness of the universe, because that smallness is shared by all of us together. He reminded us that our planet is fragile and that its beauty comes from its rarity. In all the cosmic darkness we've explored, Earth remains our only home. And he reminded us that wonder belongs to everyone. You don't need to be an expert to look up at the night through. Species still learning, still growing, still finding its way. He believed that exploration, whether through science, through art, or through simply asking big questions, is what will guide us forward. Even now, decades after his passing, those words feel alive. Every telescope aimed at the heavens, every spacecraft launched toward distant worlds, every child who gazes up at the stars and asks, "What's out there?" These are echoes of his legacy. And as you lie here listening, you are part of that legacy too. You are a thinker, a dreamer, a traveler on a small world, circling a star in a galaxy that drifts among billions of others. Your life, as brief as it is, adds its own color to the cosmic story. Imagine yourself standing somewhere far from the city lights. Above you, the night sky stretches endlessly, filled with shimmering stars, some long dead, their light only now reaching you. Among them are planets, comets, galaxies, and mysteries we cannot yet name. And beneath them, you stand on a tiny blue world, small but alive. Breathe slowly in and out. Know that you are connected to this earth, to its people, to the vast, beautiful universe beyond. Carl Sagan's greatest gift wasn't his knowledge of the stars, it was his ability to remind us that even in the vastness, we belong. And now, as you drift towards sleep, let that thought settle over you like a blanket. You are part of something immense. You are home, and the stars will still be there when you wake. Good night.